Thanks so much for tuning in to Cam & Company on NRAnews.com and Sirius XM Patriot 125. Still to come on the program. We're going to talk with Steve Failer from American Legacy about a giveaway that they are doing, a new Mossberg rifle to benefit NRA's Voice of Freedom Fund. We'll talk about that here in about 20 minutes. But right now, I want to welcome to the show Mr. Steve Rinella with MeatEater on Sportsman Channel. How are you, Steven?
Good. Thanks for having me on, man.
You bet. It's a real pleasure having you here. So tell me, the show debuted just a few weeks ago.
A couple Sundays ago, yeah.
Tell us, what is MeatEater all about? I mean, it sounds pretty self-evident, right?
Yeah, our rallying cry is, killer hunts, killer food. So we go on really great, pretty extreme backcountry hunts. And then every episode, if things go well, end with a meal that sort of walks a fine line between like being caveman and fine dining. So, for instance, did one where we kill a black bear up in the Chugach Range in Alaska and render all the fat down into oil and then deep fry bear in bear oil.
Oh, wow.
And or other things like, spatchcock and whole mallards and cooking them over a fire after hunting in Minto Flats outside of Fairbanks. So just like really, remote kind of hunts that look pretty cool, and then food that's almost startling at the end.
That's neat.
So,
What's your background, Stephen?
I was born in Michigan and lived in Montana for a long time. Did a lot of outdoor writing. I came into this through outdoor writing, but my first primary aspiration from the time I was 10 is I was going to be a mountain man. But then I realized I was like a couple hundred years, too late on that. Then I was going to be a professional fur trapper, and when that didn't work out, I had to resort to being an outdoor writer. So, and then that kind of brought me into TV, just like reaching a different audience and
right.
But my whole life I've always been through hunting. I've always been like a food-based hunter, I mean, I appreciate the thrill of it. If you walk in my house, I got, racks and skulls and stuff on my bookshelves. So I appreciate like the symbol of trophies, and I appreciate like that it's emblematic of a greater set of experiences. But for me, like my primary drive beyond just like the adventure and good time is hunting for my own food. So in my home, me and my wife and our young boy, when we're home, we eat game meat, and it's just like it's a preferred lifestyle, Like I can't come and tell you that I'm in a position where I have to eat it or else I'd starve to death. I mean, it's just obviously not true.
Right.
But it's a lifestyle choice I've made. It's how I connect to hunting. It's how I connect to the out of doors. It just has become my focus and a goal of mine to live that way. And I think the show really tries to capture that level of excitement and to look at an animal, like after a successful hunt, to look at an animal not as being that it's just laying there and now it's over, but the fun's only beginning at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's a really interesting twist, too, not just a hunting show, but in essence a cooking show as well.
Yeah, and I think people that watch it, I mean, you'll see stuff, like you're going to see like I said almost like startling, like some of the things we do. Like we've cooked like javelina meat inside a javelina stomach by heating up rocks and dropping the hot rocks into the stomach to boil the water inside there. So you'll see things that are kind of bizarre like that, but also you'll at the same time be learning some great tricks. And I've always been a avid reader of like books on anthropology and human history. And so a lot of the cooking strategies we're doing are things that I've pulled out of old texts or where people spent time with indigenous cultures and wrote about how they cooked. And it's not meant, though, the goal of this isn't meant to be like shock value food. It's not gross out food, but it's like really showing people in a beautiful way, like practical tips on how to do, like wilderness survival, to make things that are worthwhile, and sometimes to make things that you'd love to share with your wife and kids. It's not supposed to be like eating raw maggots and like, oh my God, that's so gross. I mean, it's like it's real usable information put on there in a way that I hope and that to be entertaining and inspiring. Like I want people to see the show and want to go out and do that as well. And our thing is like every guy who hunts has heard a non-hunter or someone who's uneasy with hunting or unfamiliar with hunting. They'll have a line or they'll say, well, if you eat it, that's okay. And I think that, and by no means am I arguing that all hunting ends in eating. Mm-hmm. However, I think that hunters should be more vocal and more outward with their relationship to food, that they hunt deer and eat deer. And I think that more than probably anything else will make non-hunters and people who are just haven't been exposed to it, they'll understand that link. I think it's just something that people just get, Right. So I think that hunters, when they are eating game, need to be like vocal and outright about that use. And so if this show, I made a show that in my mind is supposed to be like great fun for hunters to watch, But if other people stumble across the show and feel inspired, I feel that maybe they'll come away and be like, I understand what those guys are about.
Right. Well, no, I mean, honestly, I think that the hunting audience is going to get it, but I think it's very appealing to a non-hunting audience as well, because there's a certain curiosity factor. That's one of the great things about the variety of television that we have right now, is that you can explore things from the comfort of your couch and see if you actually want to go and do this.
Exactly.
What you're doing, it really seems like is going to appeal to a pretty broad audience. I mean, let's say everybody from the Anthony Bourdain fans to the Andrew Zimmer fans to the folks who are watching Jim Shockey and a lot of the folks on Sportsman Channel with the pure hunting type of shows. Yeah. You really have a broad audience base, I think, for a show like this.
I feel too, and I don't have raw data to give you on this, but from my personal observation and friends' observations, I think that a lot of people right now are finding an introduction to hunting through food. I think that a lot of guys who don't hunt, maybe who live in suburban areas or urban areas, they don't walk in and see like a buck rack on your wall and be like, dude, I want to get into hunting. But when I have those guys over my house and they see that, and then I give them a venison steak off it, often the response is, dude, I'm doing this, man. I would love to have a deer in my freezer.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like an introductory level thing, and I in that way feel, I can't lie to you too and act like, oh, I'm only doing this to save hunting and recruit hunters. I mean, I'm doing it because it's fun, it's inspiring work, and if at the same time people watch this show and want to get into that, and I get a lot of inquiries, probably one of the biggest like lines of inquiry I get is people looking for introductory hunting material. And you talk to like state agencies who talk about that we've missed this generation of hunters, where you got guys, like I hear from so many people who'd be like, oh, my granddad was a big hunter, but then it just skipped one, and now people don't have that in, I mean, my dad took me hunting from, it would have been a laughable notion that he'd go hunting and I wouldn't come with him. And same thing with my brothers. We always hunt with our old man. If before we were old enough to hunt, he would put extra tree stands in his tree, and we would sit in his tree with him. It was like you went hunting,
Right.
And if I hadn't had that, I don't know how I would have ever finagled my way into the lifestyle I have. You know? So I think that one thing to inspire people, but also to try to provide people with some practical knowledge about how to go about doing things that maybe their dad didn't show them how to do.
Well, I think that there is an interest, and certainly, I mean, you see tough economic times, the idea of being able to get your own game and put in some, cheap, plentiful meat in your freezer, that's appealing to a lot of people. But even beyond that, I mean, from the sort of, haute cuisine side of things, I read a story not too long ago about some folks out in San Francisco who are doing this. They didn't grow up in hunting families.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of killing what you eat, and eating what you kill, and it is very appealing, I think, to people who have never been exposed to hunting in their life until they reached adulthood.
Yeah, that's, and I'll tell you, like I became a hunter. We always ate a lot of game meat, but we didn't look at it. It didn't have like the spiritual significance that it does for me now. It's just like something we caught fish and ate them, shot deer and ate them, and the next night it might be chicken and then back to deer meat. And then it wasn't until I moved out of home and began to like fend for myself, and I was in college, and I have the classic, being broke in college story.
Right.
And we would kill a lot of deer within 8 miles of our home. I went. This is when I was living in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and we'd hunt 8 miles from home. I remember me and my roommates, we ate through 4 deer between October 1 and Christmas break.
Wow.
It's just like we lived on venison, man. And then later, if someone had come down and given me like $1 million by the end of that, I would have continued. I wouldn't have changed a thing. I would have changed a lot of things. Nothing about my diet though. But like by that moment, like after eating that diet, like salmon from the river, deer from the woods,
right?
I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like from now on, I'm just gonna eat game, because I never felt so good and like so inspired. And mealtime was fun. I was learning how to cook. And we would just eat burgers for lunch and steaks for dinner, and that got old. And so I started to experiment with other stuff. And now, I'm pretty handy in the kitchen, and I can present game meat. Like I could cook javelina and my wife will eat it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I can present game meat in a lot of ways now. And I would have never have ever had this relationship with cooking if it wasn't for wild game. It was like, it's there in the freezer. You got to figure out how to use it. You know? And I think a lot of hunters too, man, like people be like, oh, my wife won't eat it. I think that the answer to that is just experimentation, reading, cooking, and just trying to find things that inspire you, and then serving them up. And pretty soon, I think any guy is going to can figure out how to like cook for his wife and kids, or any woman. I don't mean to be like exclusive and act like that's not the case. That women are going to hunt and learn how to cook for their family, and people are going to look forward to it. Like my wife now, she didn't grow up hunting. She much prefers to eat game meat now, and she actually says that like eating domestic meat just kind of turns her off. Like she's just used to the leanness of game meat. You know? And now she just feels like, oh, man, they got hit by a hammer. To eat like a restaurant burger. You know? She's just used to eating deer now. So
Really?
And I took her deer hunting one time, and she broke down in tears.
Yeah.
Didn't end well. But then a while later, she killed a salmon with a rock. So she recuperated. But
that's good.
What I'm getting at is she's not a hunter, but she's a game eater.
Okay. Hey, well, baby steps, I guess, right? And if the hunting isn't for everybody, you know what? Eating is for everybody.
It's something everybody does.
Exactly. Yeah. So when does MeatEater air?
It's on Sportsman Channel. Airs Sunday nights. Eastern time zone will be 9, and then again at midnight. And then there's some repeats throughout the week. You can always go to the Sportsman Channel website and find the schedule. And if you want to see more about the show and a lot of clips and extra scenes, go to themeateater.com. And that place is loaded down with information, material, tips, recipes, funny stuff. It's a good destination.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Stephen, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program today. Best of luck to you, sir. Love to talk to you again at some point.
Yeah, for sure, man. Have me on anytime. Thanks a lot.
Stephen Rinella, the MeatEater, joining us here on Cam and Company.